skin crawl to hear it. But what they say is this. They are taken on board a craft. They are made pregnant. They come home. They are pregnant. They go to the doctor in a couple of months. They're pregnant. They get the sound scan. They can see the fetus. There's no doubt about it. It's on record. There are many records of this. There are books done about it called the twin effect, because a lot of times it's twins, but a lot of times it's not. And in the fourth month, in the first month of the second trimester, somewhere, they're going to wake up and have every sign of a miscarriage except no fetus. And they have been harvested. And then later, some years later, anywhere from 5 to 10 or even 15 years, they will be taken back on board and they will be shown what is alleged to be their hybrid children, and they will be told to spend time, bond, have any relationship you want with your children or child. Now, it's horrifying, I know, to hear this, but nonetheless, this is an ongoing story that women tell all over the world, that they're being harvested. So one of them contacts me, named Josie Valenti, and she says, Lloyd, I've been harvested 4 times, and I was taken on board and I saw 2 of my children, and I was allowed to interact with them, and I have a good memory of it, and I'm an artist and I drew them. Would you like to see them? And so I said, yes, of course. And she said, and I did it back in '96. I said, great. So she did. This is her 12-year-old daughter as she remembered it. Okay, next slide. This is her 8-year-old son. She polished it up a little bit for me, but she said, basically, this is it. Now, that's very Starchild-like. Check the profile of the kid. Next slide. Look at that. Pretty remarkable. Now, keeping this in mind, there was a man taken on board in the early 1990s. Don't use his name, but he was so freaked out, and he had some money, he had a sculptor do a bust of the beings that took him on board their craft and dealt with him. And he worked with that sculptor, and he made him get it just right. And the sculptor kept having trouble, but they worked together on it for a long time, and he paid for it, and he got it. And he sent me a picture of it. Check this out. 92, this happened. Look at this. More than that, check the front view. Next slide. Look at those eyes, folks. This is a guy in 92 now. Way before the Starchild came to light. Pretty interesting. Not perfect, just like the drawings. You know, they can quibble about little points, but awful close, well into the ballpark. Next slide. Okay, now this is really interesting to me. This is a book called A Visual Guide to Alien Beings by David Chase. Okay? Here it is right here. If we don't have copies here, but if you're interested in getting a copy of this book, you can get it through Greenleaf Publications in the States. Greenleafpublications.com. What this is a book by a young man who called people, and he said, anybody out there that thinks they saw an alien and would like to tell somebody about it and have them draw it, please get in touch with me. And he did. And he called, and he used a lot of his own stuff as well. But you've got a book filled, literally filled. And a lot of them, if you see it close, have babies in test tubes, baby racks, walls of babies growing up in test tubes from women who tell this story of seeing the babies growing. So what you see is hundreds of them, and you can look at this at the back table with the skull as well. What you see is the grouping that he came up with. Now, he said he didn't put the insectoids up here because they're so gross and he didn't want to scare people, but to me the reptilians are just as scary. But the insectoid would be here, reptilians, the Anunnaki, Pleiadians, whatever you want to call the human ones that basically we descend from. And then you have the different grays. You have the little blue men down here in the corner that are, I didn't even know about them. He said they're the rarest ones. People see them the least. But you have the different grays, and then you have the hybrid, the one that's kind of flesh-colored there to the side. You see that? Now, the Starchild could well be one of those. Could well be one of those. But it's all very interesting just that such things exist. Okay, now, next slide. Now we're going to tie it all up and bring it on home. This is a Neanderthal to the left and a human to the right. And what you saw earlier and what you have very clearly is a reconfiguration of the same bones, frontal bones, sphenoid, parietal, but a complete reconfiguration to the point where we share nothing with them genetically. Very little. I mean, very little. It's clear that we did not descend from them. It's like we share stuff with mice. We're not them. It's a reconfiguration of the bone. And it's making different kind of bone. It's much lighter. It's a reconstitution of the bone. If you were to put the Starchild right here, the difference between it and the human would be no different than it and the Neanderthal. And furthermore, the feet are the same thing. Remember the feet? The same bone, reconfigured, reconstituted. If you were to put the Starchild's feet, if we had them, it would probably, we could say the same thing. Reconfigured, reconstituted. I think, to me, this is all compelling enough evidence to indicate that we should be doing what we're doing, which is getting the DNA of the Starchild tested. Well, that's basically it then. Thank you very much. The right half from the middle all the way over, and these were the two teeth right here. Okay. You see how it worked? It's missing. But it's, again, see, it's much smaller. You see how flat the roof is? It's not really normal. But this is as close as we have to what we think it might have looked like. Okay? Now, as you see up close, you see it's got all the things that I was telling you about, the indentation where the inion was, the two spots where the neck attached. You see this little ridge right here? You can see it in the light here really good. We think the neck, we don't have that in ours because ours overlaps, but we think the neck circled around right there. You can stick your finger in here. I didn't discuss this in the slide presentation, but you can stick your finger in here and feel this ridging. It should be twice as big in a human. They think there may even not be a cerebellum in here, and your cerebellum is your motor part of your brain. So that too is another very big difference. But it's, since we do have some part of it here, I don't talk about it too much.
Where is the skull? Back in America?
It's back in America, yes. Safekeeping with the owners, right, yeah. Now,
sort of very whole body physiognomy from the